Hey, it's Aaron, the Metal Theologian. Checking that volume there. Yes, this is this band called Blackout, man. And that's not exactly the most creative name ever, right? It's like there are a lot of bands called Blackout. But this is one of those records that used to turn up kind of a lot, you know what I mean? You might see this like, I don't know, like with the Dokken records or something like that, you know? But like this one is, that's not a good example, actually. I always felt like this is one that sort of slipped through the cracks, like the way the Magnum records always did, or Nightwing records. But those kind of deserve to slip through the cracks, is where it's sort of dissimilar, because this is really a pretty legit metal record, you know? I mean, it's not like the greatest thing ever. It's really meat and potatoes. But you know, it rocks, and it's 84, so it's like right there. It's Dutch, so it sounds like a little bit foreign, even though, you know, it's a pretty straight ahead style. It's not like they're playing a really eccentric style of metal here, you know? So, you know, it's not a fantastic album, but it's a very good record, you know? Don't go out and spend a ton of money on it, but if you come across it cheap somewhere, which could happen. I don't know, for some reason in my head, this is on a big label, too, and it's actually... Well, I guess it's actually an Attic, but Roadrunner, you know. So, but in my head, this feels like it should be Atlantic, maybe just because it doesn't really paint by the metal numbers right on the cover. You know what I mean? This doesn't look like a metal. This looks more like a southern rock album, I think. So, yeah, it's pretty rocking though, you know. You sound like you're Motorhead fans for sure. Here's another record I was hyping. I was actually hanging out with Audio Geek 67 and I was hyping this. Because Accept is so fucking good, man. This fucking record is just one of the greatest things ever. And I don't know, I might have said this before, but I kind of think that Udo Dirkschneider might be the greatest singer of all time. Yeah, I don't know if I have any pictures of him right here, because that one doesn't have an inner, but this one does. But, he had the look. And he had the name. And he had the voice, you know what I mean? It's like, look at that, man. That guy can be in my band any fucking day of the week, right? I mean, look at him. That's fucking Udo. And his name is Udo, right? Like, what name could possibly, like, be appropriate for the guy who looks like this? Oh, Udo, of course. No brainer, right? Breaker's probably my favorite Accept record. It's pretty close with Restless and Wild, but I feel like Restless and Wild drags a little bit more on side 2 than Breaker does. In fact, it never occurred to me until just now to wonder if it's actually a longer album. I think they're about the same, but they're both 10 songs if I'm not mistaken. But now I wonder. Yeah, this is cool. I remember I bought this when you could still find this shit in the wild, but I specifically on this one I held out for a German press because I wanted it on Brain. I love the idea of my Accept records being on Brain records, you know. Yeah, I mean, of course, it wasn't really Brain records by this point in time, you know. Brain changed a lot between the first Scorpions record and the first Accept record. You know something, the Brain label's kind of overrated, I think, too, honestly. I mean, I love the krautrock shit as much as anybody, and frankly, I'll put my knowledge of it against just about anyone, too, and my shit. I don't have a ton of originals. I had a few at one point, I had to let them go on Hard Times, but when it comes to, like, German shit from the first half of the 70s, I'm pretty okay, and I'll tell you something, there were some fucking bangers on the Brain label. But overall, the reverence that's accorded it, I think is a little bit overblown. I think Ore was as good as it's made out to be. Okay, like shit, we're talking about this fucking Kraut shit now instead of metal. I didn't even have any fucking, I only have metal records here. Yeah, but Ore was like actually that great. Like most of those records are at least worth a listen. You know, the worst Ore record, you know, you might be done after a side, but it's all like interesting, you know. And frankly, there's no record on Ore that I would be done with after just a side. I love all that shit, even like that weird like German folk one. What the fuck is it? You know something? I wouldn't bother to do this, but Jurgen might be watching and he'll want to see this shit. Yeah, it's funny. I'm just sort of taking for granted that everyone in my audience knows the entire Ohr catalog. You know? In case you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, Ohr is like the German label. It means ear in German. And this is the logo. And like the early Tangerine Dream records, like the really fucking good ones, not like Stratosphere and that shit. And I like those records, okay? But like Electronic Meditation, Alpha Centauri, that shit came out on Ohr. Fucking early Cluster came out. No, wait a minute. Cluster was on Brain. And Phillips. Who else? Fucking Birth Control, that Operation record came out on Ohr. There's a bunch of that kind of shit. Asherah Temple was on Ohr. Anyway, so this is sort of the oddball of that label. For some reason, this weird, like, sort of folk record. Y'all just put this on for a minute, because y'all get the idea about Blackout anyway. And I'll tell you something. This is the only channel, the only metal channel in the vinyl community where we're going to listen to an Arno Clauss record. Yeah, look at this shit. I'm not even sure if I've ever actually played this record before. I kind of just got it for the artifact, because I wanted to have all the Ohr records, right? I mean, look at that label. How could I not want that, you know? I'll tell you what, I have some metal philosophy I've been thinking about, so I'll get into that after I'm done hyping Ohr. So if you came here for the metal and you feel suckered right now, I'll come back around to you, I promise. Yeah, Ohr was like a fucking fantastic label, but their shit was always a lot harder to find in the US. And that's kind of the thing. The Brain shit was always hard to find too, but it was a lot easier to find than the Ohr shit. And so I think Brain sort of got some of that. You know, this isn't really any worse than like Betthuser and Westrop, if you like that shit. It's not as psychedelic as Trips and Träume. Look at this fucking guy, though. Alright, so what were we talking about? We were talking about Accept. So here's what I'm thinking about with regard to metal. You know, if you look at how many metal records there are, like, out in the world, I mean, they become expensive because there aren't all that many out there, you know what I mean? It's like, there were some of us who were into it and, like, collecting that shit and, like, kind of crazy about it. But there weren't that many of us, you know? So in retrospect, it's like, you know, you hear people like me and Greeno and, you know, Eric Bauer probably. People have been doing it for a while, and they'll talk about how abundant certain records used to be back in the day and shit like that. And I don't know if there are any more out there. It's just that people didn't care, you know what I mean? It's like people have just sort of figured out recently that the shit is fantastic. Oh shit, I just did something stupid. So, one thing that I think people forget about metal is that metal was really heavily stigmatized for a long time. You know, definitely during the 80s, and frankly during the 70s too, before I was into it. But during the 80s, and then obviously the 90s, and most of the 2000s too, people just looked down on metal. The critics always looked down on metal, you know? I mean, if they did deign to talk about metal, they'd do shit like put that Sex Pistols record at the top of a metal list of metal records, right? Shit like that. Just like total disrespect for like any kind of heavy music. So that definitely makes it a little bit extra thrilling that like these records that I have aren't just worth more money now, but also that like people actually want them because they want to listen to them. Because I mean, first of all, that's what I care more about anyway, right? You know what I mean? The money's nice, but it's not like I'm going to sell them, you know? They're mine. I'm just grateful I'm not trying to build this collection now, you know? One of the few good things about getting older, I suppose. You know, when I was 20, I wasn't old enough to have been collecting for 30 years. So, Anyway, though, like, metal was so heavily stigmatized, and, you know, there's the satanic panic and shit like that. It was like, there was always just, like, there was a different angle. There's the PMRC. It was like one thing after another with people shitting on metal. To this day, I actually believe that the reason that George W. Bush won the election in 2000 was because there were enough people my age, give or take a few years, who paid no attention at all to politics, didn't know anything at all about, like, who the Democrats or Republicans were or anything. But they saw Al Gore's name and they're like, wait a minute, I know, like Tipper Gore, I know who that is. I'm voting for the other guy, you know? I think that tipped more people than Ralph Nader or Hanging Chads or anything else. Anyway, metal was so heavily stigmatized, so the sorts of people who were most likely to be into metal, I mean, yeah, there was a culture that's sort of self-reinforcing. You can read the anthropological shit about it, which I find to be a little condescending, but whatever. But the people who were into it were more likely to get a chip on their shoulder about it and take sort of a defiant attitude about it a little bit. And if you carry that forward, that's going to translate into more people my age who are like making videos talking about metal. Because it's the metal fans who are the ones who are inclined to go on and make a thing and say, hey, listen, this is a fucking great record, man. And if you don't realize it, fuck you, because you're just wrong. It's accept. You know what I mean? So if you ever feel like there's a lot of metal channels, maybe a lot of people talk about the same records, unfortunately, because there's a whole world out there too. If you feel like there's a lot of metal channels, that's probably a factor, you know? I haven't done any research on this, but just psychologizing about that, that's my working theory. Bruce Springsteen fans? Fucking Rolling Stone magazine was slobbering all over your balls for the last 30 years. You don't need to fucking start a YouTube channel for validation, you know? In case you're wondering if I just happened to leave this on while I was saying all that shit just to be a dick, I did it on purpose. You know something? This fucking record I've had for a long time. Here, I won't drag it out. Ecstasy and Danger by Ostrogoth. I've never not liked this record, okay? I have the first EP, right? Full Moon's Eyes. And Full Moon's Eyes is fucking fantastic. Like, the first time I heard that, I was like, God, this is good, you know? And then I listened to this one and I was like, oh man, that feels like such a step down. It's just not that. But you know something? There are all sorts of little things I'm finding that I really like about this record. And that's kind of how I know that I'm really getting into a record too, you know what I'm saying? And like, I feel like just like in the last like 2 or 3 days, this record has clicked for me. This fucking Ostrogoth record. What a great name for a band too, right? Fucking Plastic Outer is going, but look at these fucking guys too, man. Like, these guys totally look like one of the bands that was probably like playing like at clubs through the 70s. And the metal thing happened. They were like, maybe if we jump on this bandwagon, we'll make it, you know? You know, Quartz was sort of like that too. And, you know, sometimes you look at them and go, you guys look a little bit old, you know what I mean? Like, that's what they got Metallica, you know, is they look like they were the right age to be making the kind of music they were. This band, it's like they all look like they're Mick Mars. But I don't care because this is a fucking fantastic record. And the EP is even better. But I'll tell you this, man. Even like with the last couple days being like really high on Ostrogoth, I'm not going to buy a fucking box set, dude. First of all, I hate box sets. But second of all, dude, come on, man. Who are we kidding here? I don't need a fucking Ostrogoth box set. It's like people wonder why I have all these great records. I'm like, well, half the reason why is because you're buying all this stupid bullshit. You know? You're just buying horse shit. Okay, now I'm just kind of being a dick. So I've been thinking about making a video about like, I started talking with Louis Golden actually. He was like talking about some of the basics, you know? And I like to joke about how this is kind of an advanced channel. But the fact is, sometimes I think the basics are interesting too. So I've been trying to think, okay, just like what are 10 like great metal records? Like if you're a brand new collector, what are 10 records that I can recommend that preferably aren't too hard to find? But I'm like, I don't even want to go there in my head because I'm not going to start pricing shit just to make a list as a fan. You know, again, that's not what I want to make it about. So it definitely feels like Judas Priest needs to be represented, right? But the question is, which album do I pick? Now, I don't want to pick Sad Wings of Destiny or, frankly, Sin After Sin. No, actually, no ambiguity about Sin After Sin. I don't want to pick that one or Sad Wings of Destiny, and probably not, well, Stained Class I could go with. Anyway, nothing too early because it's not representative of metal as it became. You know what I mean? Like metal, like sort of the golden age of metal. I'm sorry, I'm a fucking zit I keep playing with. Like, we'll watch this later and be like, oh, what's the fuck? Did you have a zit there? Yeah, I did. If I'm going to pick 10 records like this, I want them to be representative of some aspect of metal, right? And even though you can listen to, I think Stained Class is probably the best example. You can listen to Stained Class and say this has all the elements of a modern metal album as it would have sounded in like 1984, and it came out in 78. I mean, I kind of think that's the first metal album, actually. Stained Class. But, not Black Sabbath. But for reasons I really just explained, it's because of certain idioms and certain nuances and sort of differentiating metal as it came to be stylized versus heavy music, you know what I mean? And all this is completely separate from a conversation about the meaning of heavy metal having changed over time, right? And like Sabbath was totally metal in 1976 and arguably metal in 1996, you know what I mean? All of this is beside the point. Point is, which Judas Priest record to pick, okay? Obvious ones, British Steel or Screaming for Vengeance. Both of those kind of have some clunker songs on them, man. Fucking Take These Chains. That's painful. Or fucking United, man. This is probably my favorite Priest record that sounds fully like a metal record, right? But it has that drum sound. It has a lot of 80s baggage that I feel like might qualify it or might disqualify it. You know what I mean? It could kind of cut either way. Is that really part of it, that 80s-ness by itself? I don't know that it is. I mean, I think it's proven not to be with time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't a component of what I'm sort of looking to capture with this set, you know? So this might be the best, like, pure metal Priest record, for my money. Because this one really is balls out. I mean, it really doesn't slow down. And it really doesn't have a bad song either, man. Like, even the shit that got a lot of play in that, and even though it kind of looks like they're trying to redeem themselves from Turbo and ram it down without looking too much like they were trying to redeem themselves from Ram It Down and Turbo. I always combine those into Rambo. Did you catch that? Anyway, I'm really just kind of riffing. This record is just unequivocally great. And I feel like it doesn't have the clunkers, you know what I mean? Like, this one doesn't really have any clunkers either. But some of it's just kind of cringe, man. And not cringe in the same way that Manowar is kind of cringe, where it's like, it's actually not cringe at all. Or it is, but it feels so good, you know. Anyway, so I was going through my Priest albums anyway. I pulled this one out, because I got this one kind of recently. And man, I like this record kind of a lot, you know? The fucking Johnny B. Good cover sounds just as bad now as it did in the 80s, man. It's fucking insufferable. And it was fucking sadistic of them to stick it right in the middle like that, you know? And like, if you're a lyrics guy, this record couldn't be more idiotic. I mean, it has a song called Heavy Metal, and it has another song called Monsters of Rock. And what I find particularly hilarious, and like, if I were inclined to think that this were like a big, like, sort of gag at the expense of the fans, I would say this was deliberate, but I don't think it was. But fucking Heavy Metal just sounded like the most synth-heavy thing, like, on this or Turbo. I mean, I don't think it actually was. But, like, the song is called Heavy Metal, and there's this really prominent, like, keyboard in it. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm, like, wondering if I remembered it wrong now, if I was, like, confusing the songs, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't. Yeah, Monsters of Rock. That's one where I like listen to it. I'm like, this is one of the fucking dumbest things, but it's really kind of fantastic. So, I'm pretty okay with Ram It Down, and it might really benefit from the fact that it doesn't have the baggage. I was gonna show Turbo, but I didn't pull Turbo out because I didn't want to hear it. Like Turbo is the one that I really remember myself from the '80s. And maybe some of the shit on that one that makes me cringe the hardest makes me cringe because I remember it from then. So this one I feel like I don't have the personal baggage with, but I also don't have any like sentimental attachment to it at all. Like to the degree that I do, it's just hostility on account of Johnny B. Good. So, oh yeah, listen to this one too, because this one's actually genuinely great. Although there's fucking Take on the World is kind of crap. Before the Dawn. It's actually it's a nice song. It's actually really, I got no beef with it, you know what I mean? It's just sort of a ballad, and like, I don't really like a ballad in the middle of my metal albums, That's one reason why Udo is so fucking great, actually. Because I think if there's one ballad on any metal album that fucking works, it's Can't Stand the Night off this fucking record. Which is just like, it's just so good, man. It's so good that I'm gonna put it on for a minute. Because I actually want to hear the fucking ballad, dude. And then, like, as you're listening to this in the background, you can think about, you can think about how it proves that Udo is just the fucking greatest. I reserve the right to change my mind by next video, by the way. No, but seriously, I've been a pretty big Udo fan for kind of a long time. Like, Accept is a record, something, Accept, they kind of fucked around a lot. They did a lot of mediocre shit for such a great band, but when Accept was on, I don't know that any band was ever more on than Accept when Accept was on. You know what I mean? And on Breaker, they were fucking on. And on Restless and Wild, they were pretty much on. Actually, we jump ahead. Actually, something else? From the song Breaker. Fuck, what's the rhyme? Oh yeah, Icicle Brains, Bicycle Chains. I think that's my favorite rhyme ever. Alright, so we're going to listen to the ballad off this Accept record now. This is Can't Stand the Night. Let's do a little Sabotage this week. In fact, this might be one for the list actually, because Sirens is just that fucking good. It's funny. I'm kind of late to Sabotage too. I mean, I've listened to him for like 20 years now. But like in the 80s, I was like, oh, who the fuck are they with that stupid ass name, man? And I don't know, man. I think in retrospect that I made up excuses because I didn't have the money for everything. So it was a way to, it was like easier to like. That one that I couldn't buy because I couldn't buy everything. I didn't really want that one anyway, Because that fucking record rips so hard, and so does The Dungeons Are Calling, man. Both 10 out of 10 records. But I wanted to give this one another chance, man, because it kind of has a better reputation than Fight for the Rock. And I remember kind of liking it, but I hadn't played it in a long time. Fucking Udo, man. God damn, dude. Dude, there's nobody better than... Who's better than Udo? People gonna say fucking Dio. Fucking Bruce Dickinson. Fucking listen, it's fucking Udo, man. Alright. This record's just kind of lame, dude. Like... Fight for the Rock just kind of sounds like a different band. I mean, you can hear that it's the same guys, but it just kind of sounds like they've completely lost their way. This one sounds like the same band just made a really bad record. And it isn't actually a really bad record. It's a great band making a really bad record, so it's just kind of bad. It's not really bad. I'm trying to think of how to articulate this. And like the word that keeps coming to mind is just disappointment. You know, it's like, if this were just some nobody band, this might be fine. It'd just be another kind of boring record. But like, you can hear it, you know what I mean? Is like, there are like these little sort of bits of genius in there, and these sort of cool things they're doing in the songs, you know, and some really good ideas like built in there, you know. There are lots of reasons to listen to this record, you know, and even reasons to like it, you know. It's just, I don't know, man. It just feels disappointing compared to those other ones. It just doesn't have that focus, you know what I mean? It feels like it's kind of commercial, but not so commercial that it had to spoil it, you know what I mean? Like on Fight for the Rock again, you know? Where that one just sounds like a fucking sellout record. This one doesn't sound like a sellout record. This one just kind of sounds like they, It just sounds like they were trying to put shit in and like didn't know what they were doing. I don't know, man. It's kind of a disappointment of a record, you know? Maybe someone has better words for it in the comments or something. Here's one that was a pleasant surprise, though. Another one that I kind of had for a while, got it cheap, forgot about it. Eric Bauer was talking about it. There it is. Every video I got to mention Eric Bauer or Scott Waters, right? It's like the bingo card for Metal Theologian videos. Grown Man Record Night would have a space, too. That's because I'm secretly Grim Trash Can. If you remember that guy's channel, he was a big fan of Eric Bauer's, too. Alright, anyway, this fucking Arch record, man. If I'm not mistaken, I got this for $5 at a shop in Rochester, New York. And I thought it was a little late. Because it's 89. It's not really too late for me now, but at the time I was a little more strict. It was, you know, a while ago. I hadn't quite tapped so deeply into the 80s at that point. I like this record a lot more than I expected to. Like, apparently it's like John Arch or something like that. One of these guys is named Arch, I think. I don't know. I thought it was a guy, but then I noticed this, too. Here's another reason to hate it, and I'll quit giving you reasons to hate it. Look what the fucking words of the title spell. I just noticed that the other day. Like, god damn it, dude. That's the most lame fucking thing ever. You know what that is? That's like the opposite. You know how it's cool, like it's naturally cool when a band reuses their band name in the album title? So like Demon, Night of the Demon. You know what I mean? I love that shit. This is like the opposite of that. Like making it so that like the words in your title spell your name. That's just fucking terrible, dude. That just sucks. But dude, this record, I swear, I like this record more than any of the Fates Warning records. I have the first 4 Fates Warnings. So that's what we're talking about. Here's a data pool. Maybe I'll go and listen to those and change my mind and come back around. But I put this on the other day and I was like, you know something, this kind of has all of the sort of eccentricity and the sort of, quirkiness of Fates Warning without just being so fucking hard to listen to, man. I don't know. I find Fates Warning kind of hard to listen to for some reason. And I come back to it every so often because I want to get back to it one of these days. You know, there are a lot of other bands that have similar reputations, like Manila Road, that I absolutely love, you know? So when a band has a reputation of being kind of inscrutable, I always take that as like a personal challenge, you know? And Fates Warning is kind of one of those bands, you know? But yeah, thumbs up on that Arch record. It's really pretty fucking good. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got for today. We're coming up on a half hour anyway. Guess we filled the time. Thanks for watching. It's fucking great too, by the way. I don't care if this is one with the dumb lyrics. This is a fucking banger of a song. Son of a bitch. What a great riff, man. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.